Hi, I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence and security, and is it heaven or hell? How many here think it's heaven? Hell? And somewhere between? Okay, it's a little bit of everything. I have already got introduced, so I won't do that anymore. I'm first going to talk about AI. What is it, and the definition, or the definition that doesn't exist. And I'm also going to talk a little bit what is happening right now, and then does AI enhance security and safety, and then the other way around, safety, security in AI. But first, I would like to talk a little bit about intelligence and what it is. And there are much definitions on intelligence that there are scientists in artificial intelligence. But you could say that intelligence is the ability to achieve complex goals. It could be like we are doing here. We are sitting, reading something. So we're going to eat somewhere else, and then we're going home to sleep. There are very few computers today that can do something like that. But then we have narrow intelligence. Then it's about achieving a small set of goals. It can be playing a chess game, or counting, or a simple program. So we have narrow intelligence, and then we have general intelligence. And general intelligence is what we have, what humans have, and that computers don't have today. So artificial intelligence, it's non-biological intelligence. And we have general artificial intelligence that can perform tasks as a human being. And today we don't have any systems that can do that. And then we have super intelligence, and that is what you see on sci-fi movies or read in sci-fi books. I think most of you have heard about Skynet and stuff like that. You can also look at it like this. Today, a lot of companies are working with automation of recurring or repetitive processes. And they say that they work with AI, but it's actually not AI, it's just what we have been doing. It's digitalization of processes. And then we have cognitive tools like chatbots and stuff like that. It's a little bit closer to AI. And then we have AI that uses a lot of information and data and calculations. And it's not general intelligence, but you could call it AI. And if we see what is happening right now, and I think this is the year that AI actually is no longer a PowerPoint product. We have seen a lot of discussion about AI since, I think, 10 years back. But today we have a lot of applications that are hitting the market. And I would like to show one of them. This is Furhat, and it's a startup from Stockholm. Do you think we could show the YouTube clip? Oh, okay, you're awake now? Will it work, or shall we skip this part? Okay. Okay. This is advertising movie, and this is the application. It's a robot one of the first social robots that are manufactured for a large audience. And the reason is that it's much cheaper than the robots before. Okay. Another example of application that it's manufactured today, it's driverless cars, and this is a Volvo. And Volvo has as a goal that in 2025, have 30% of all their cars made without driverless cars that are driverless. Another example is this little robot. It was in Norrköping, a small city in Sweden. They had 5 robots in the schools, and they gave the students, they asked the students what to do with it. So they used the robot for gymnastics, mathematics, and a couple of other things. And what they noticed was, and that I think it's really interesting, that kids with special needs preferred the robots than the teachers. So some kids really can benefit from having robots instead of persons as teachers. Not always, of course. I think most of you have seen this picture. It's Google's new assistant. Have you heard it? Many people have. It was launched, I think, 3 or 4 months ago. And the interesting thing with it is that you can't hear the difference between a human and a robot. And that raises a lot of questions, especially when you work with security, what you can do with something like that. And I will talk a little bit more about that later. So if we look at the timeline of AI, somewhere in the 60s and 70s, they made a lot of research in AI, but nothing happens. I actually thought about studying AI in the 90s, but it was so boring because you couldn't do anything. And what then happened was narrow AI, and we are now somewhere here, when we can do quite a lot of stuff, but we can't do general AI, and nobody knows when we reach this. But there are the only foil hats that worry about AI, and people like me that work with security. Now there are quite a lot of people that do it, and in 2015, there was a lot of researchers that gathered in Puerto Rico to discuss AI and the consequences of AI in society. What they did was an open letter, research priorities for robust and beneficial artificial intelligence. And there were actually some Swedes in these pictures, and one of them was Max Tegmark. Have you read this book? No? No? What? Did you like it? Yeah? And I can, if you want to know more about AI and security and the history of AI, I really recommend that book. I'm sorry, it's in Swedish there, but it's also the book also exists in English. Another thing that happened was in Tallinn, in November, in Tallinn, there was a minister meeting where I had the possibility to join the session with AI and security. And what was interesting there was it's actually on minister level that they're discussing AI and security and the consequences of AI in society. And here is some of the interesting things they were saying. What I said before about the Google Assistant, actually Lucas here was talking more about. He said the inability to distinguish between AI and humans has given rise to proposals for a new human right. The right to know whether you are interacting with a human or being an AI. And the ministers also said some interesting stuff, and they were actually quite open about not knowing so much about AI. And one of them said, I'm very impressed by how much everyone seems to know, because I don't understand anything. I've been at the university for several days to get explained to me what AI is. And all I understood was how much I didn't understand. And actually, I think there are a lot of people that have the same feeling. And another minister, the Minister of Finance in Denmark, said, we need to take small step at a time. You can do how many great policies you want, but it's no good if you don't handle such basic things as passwords. Do you think we have passwords in control? I think there are a lot of security persons here, isn't it? No, we don't have passwords in control. Actually, security is usually quite bad in many applications. And then we have some other things. It was Håkan Djuphammar that is, I think, his head of research at Ericsson. He said AI is such a powerful tool, such as bomb. You do not need to ban them. You just need to regulate them. And here's another view. Since artificial intelligence is global, we cannot solve the problems that exist by creating new laws. Instead, the authorities respond to beneficial intelligence. So there was a little bit of different view how to handle the risk with artificial intelligence. What I try to say was this, that if we have a legislation about AI and security, we really need to ensure that safe development of AI system must mirror existing legislation and method for secure development of IT. We don't need new method that is not in line with old methods. We just need to complement the old method for security with AI. So what you could do, and what is actually happening now, both in Sweden and in Europe, is defining principles for fundamental principle for development of AI system. And what we are talking about is fairness, ethics, transparency, accountability, and of course cybersecurity. That is what I've been working with before. And there right now in Denmark a group that are developing methods for risk management in AI. And we also need some kind of verification. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to happen, but we need to start working now. But AI is not only a risk. AI can be used a lot in security also, and in safety. And if we look at cars, for example, do you know what the biggest problems with the car is when it's about safety? Yes? The driver. 80% or 90% of all accidents are because of human errors. So you see the advantages with driverless cars. Another thing is that AI can predict diseases much better than doctors in many cases. This doesn't mean that AI is better than doctors, but AI can help doctors to make better decisions. And something happened with the picture, but you know how much data you are handling today. I know this is a very high-tech audience, isn't it? And AI, you can use AI to find unusual patterns for intrusion detection, for example. But what are the major challenges in AI and security? It's fairness. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but it's fairness. It's how you can make decisions on fair data. It's also accountability. Oh, sorry. It's also accountability. Then it's who is responsible for the decision, because the AI can't be responsible for its own decisions. And it's also transparency. It's how the decision is made. And finally, ethics. Ethics is not something new, but now we have to document what we are going to do. And if you're interested in this, you can follow Kate here. She is a professor and post a lot of interesting things about social implication of AI. So if we talk about fairness, or when AI learns from our prejudices and injustices, here are some examples. This is Thai. It was a Microsoft bot that for a couple of years ago was posted on Twitter or connected to Twitter. And she started with being one of the most nicest girl that have ever been on Twitter. And just, I think it was 14 or 16 hours later, she liked Hitler, hated Jews, and also hated feminists. And the error that occurred here was that she was learning from Twitter. So this is an example of problem of interactions. So one example of interaction problem. Here's another problem. Do you see there's something similar with the persons on these pictures? Yeah, the men. They are 40 plus something. And sorry? Did you say something? No. Men 40 plus and with a special kind of dress code. And this search I did for just a couple of months ago. I did it, I think, for a week ago, and now there is 1 or 2 women here, and I don't know if the reality have changed or if Google have done something with the algorithms. But Google had the same problem with the recruiting ads. And after a while, the better paid jobs were displayed for men and lower paid jobs for women. And so this is a way that society today, in combination with AI, perhaps can make the world a little bit worse than it already had been. So accountability is who is responsible for AI decisions. In some cases, it can be easy. The boat here, Thai, it was Microsoft's boat, and they just shut her down. But who is responsible for the car? Is it the driver, the supplier, the one that has made the algorithms? Someone have to be responsible, otherwise no one wants to use a car. And then we have transparency. How do we know what AI's decisions are based on? And this is one of the trick questions today. Very few algorithms are you can't trace why they made a decision. And what happens here was that Marietje, she made a speech in the European Parliament. And it was, I think it was something about a speech about death penalty and banning something about death penalty. I don't remember the details. But the YouTube clip on her speech was immediately erased from YouTube. And nobody knew why. So what she said was, when algorithms affect human rights, public values, or public decision-making, we need oversight and transparency. So today, YouTube are censoring us, and is that the way we want it to be? Angela Merkel also have the same point of view. The way search engines and social networks like Google and Facebook shows what people see online should be made public. So they are all going after transparency. And if you want to read more about this and how you could solve the problem, this is an essay you can download when you come home to your hotel room tonight. It's Why Should I Trust You? So there is some kind of solution of the problems, but it's not implemented today in any product. And ethics. This was my favorite car when I was a teenager. His name was Kit. I'm still waiting for a Kit to be on the market, but unfortunately not. But if we talk about ethics, we now need to make decisions that we did yesterday, but we did it very, very hastily and we didn't have to document it. For example, in a car accident, should you hit a baby or should you hit a couple on the sidewalk? And the problem is we have to have this difficult discussion now instead of just see what's happening. And the discussion is not that easy because in Sweden or in Europe, we have different values than in US or in China or in Japan. So we have to somehow find a way to coexist with AI and also have some kind of base of ethics. Another thing is that if you have a wrong set of goals, if you give the AI a wrong set of goals, it can make a lot of decisions that we don't want or we don't realize can happen. Two types of decision is negative side effects, that it makes it reaches a goal, but there are very bad side effects, and I have to take some examples soon. Or sub-optimation, it reaches a goal, but perhaps it was not in the way that we thought. One example, if this little robot gets the goal to clean up, this is a central station in Stockholm. He could clean it up like we do, but unfortunately this robot don't have the values that we have. And he does it in his own way. So one way is that he cleaned up the central station and then he put all the garbage in there is a big hole in the middle. And that is quite a negative, that is sub-optimation. So we have a very clean central station, but it's not really nice in the subway. If you have a very negative side effect, it's that the robot suddenly realizes who is doing the mess. And as I write thrillers, I imagine a lot of very disgusting things that this robot can do. So you can have negative side effect or sub-optimations. And if we look into the future, when AI gets smarter than us, and now we are in science fiction, but it's quite interesting to take it as a couple of years in the future. The singularity, most of you, I think, have heard about. Have you? Yeah? The singularity is when a computer or an AI system can develop itself and make itself smarter. And then suddenly we are out of the loop. And what we are just, we are the one that's slowing down the processes. So if an AI suddenly can develop itself, in just a couple of seconds, it reaches much higher intelligence. And then we are completely out of the loop. Another interesting thing to talk about is how do you test something that it's been tested? If you're interested in that, just Google it. There are lots of research papers on it. It's very interesting. And finally, can AI have emotion? No, I thought, oh no, that's just science fiction. But then I was listening to this guy. He's a Nobel Prize winner in medicine. And he has realized, or he has discovered, in which cell in your brain there is a certain memory. And he can also manipulate it. Fortunately, I have only done this on mice, I hope. But what he said was that soon they will discover patterns in the brain that is caused of different emotions. And perhaps you could use this pattern to implement this in AI. That raises a lot of interesting thoughts. But if you go back to what we were talking about in the beginning, where is AI now? We are talking a lot about ethics, about fairness and stuff like that. AI is in computers. And computers today is not really safe. Of course, not the computers that you are handling, but if on the market or in most of the companies, computers are not that safe, especially in IoT applications or products on the market. This is how much IoT would raise the number of IoT appliances or connection worldwide will grow until 2025. And the red one is private, is for private persons, and the blue one is for companies. So what we will have is a lot of IoT products that you probably will put a lot of AI sooner or later in. You know, we have Alexa and all other stuff. And today, IoT is not safe or secure. So what I would say is that AI security, it's fairness, accountability, transparency, and ethics that we were talking about at the beginning, but also cybersecurity. It's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So if you talk about AI security, you can't talk of one of these. You have to talk about all of them. And so I will just make a short summary. What are the risks? One risk is, I'm sorry, there was some Swedish. One risk is that you develop artificial intelligence that is for defense reasons and stuff, that is actually military appliance, and that does things that it's supposed to do, but not in the way you want to. Another risk is unaware development of harmful artificial intelligence. We have also a risk group that it's manipulated intelligence, and that it's, as I talked about Tay before, she is manipulated by Twitter, but this is also a way to manipulate stop signs for cars. If a driverless car reads stop sign with these small dots on, we don't see really the difference, but if they read it, they think it's 45, the speed limit is 45. Another risk group is bias and other data-driven problems. And finally, cybersecurity. And that was about what I was supposed to say. If you want to talk more with me, I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn. It's just add me.
So thank you, Åsa. So we're running a bit tight for time, so we're going to bring on the next speaker. Thank you very much. So the second